Is a frequent critic of Uganda's longtime President Yoweri Museveni, and he's upping the pressure on the government. Wine is a member of the Ugandan parliament. He's also an internationally renowned musician who sings about freedom, struggle and oppression. Now, last year he was beaten by the Ugandan authorities after President Museveni's motorcade was pelted with stones. He faces charges of treason. Well, now Bobi Wine is focusing his attention on the Ugandan government's newly proposed regulations for artists. I spoke to him earlier on this week about his recovery and also his political ambition. The last time we spoke, you had just been tortured. You had come to the US for medical treatment. How are you doing now, and are you still being harassed?
I'm glad to say I'm getting physically better. Of course, I am still being harassed at home, but I like not to focus on my harassment as a person. I like to focus on the oppression of the entire population.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that while the world looks at my brutalization and personal oppression, I know that millions of people go through similar oppression or even worse in Uganda. So I want to use my circumstances to propel that voice so that the world does not only see my oppression, but looks at the oppression of all my countrymen and women.
You've become an opposition figure. You are an opposition figure. You're also a musician. And I see that the Ugandan government is trying to regulate the music industry, signing codes of ethics for musicians. Is this aimed at you? Is this censorship? Is there some sort of political motivation behind this?
Well, the regime in Uganda has always used various approaches to curtail personalities. We must remember that the Public Order Management Act was brought to combat the opposition leader, then Dr. Kizza Besigye. And indeed, after the rise of myself, many initiatives have been put in place by the regime to try to curtail us. So the regulations that are being proposed today in Uganda are actually called by the population the anti-Bobi Wine legislation. After noticing that music has played a big role in the opening of the minds and eyes of the people, the regime seeks to regulate it. So they have intended to bring these ridiculous regulations where an artist has to surrender the script of their work before they can record it or put it in practice, and indeed a very laughable law where an artist must get permission from the government before he or she can travel and perform outside the country. Having blocked my concerts and abolished my music, the regime gets surprised to see that I can still musically communicate to the population back home when I perform outside. For example, when I went to Kenya and performed, and when I went to Jamaica and performed, millions and millions of people, especially young people in Uganda, were listening and following me.
You talk